Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for the webinar Conquer China's Beauty Market. It's my pleasure to present to you today and to explain a little bit about how to register cosmetics products for the Chinese market. Before I dive in, though, I'm going to give a couple more attendees time to log in and just explain a little bit about the company I work for, Cisema, and myself. Cisema stands for China Service Management and was founded over 16 years ago by Anna Fischer. It was founded in Germany, but by now we have 9 offices all over the world and over 90 employees. We were actually the first service provider for China compulsory certification, and we have specialized in China regulatory affairs, which explains why we have so many offices in mainland China. My name is Anna Fischer. I've been working for Cisema since 2013, and I have specialized in the CFDA certificate. CFDA stands for China Food and Drug Administration. I regularly write scientific articles and also present for chambers of commerce or industry associations, as well as for trade fair organizations. I see that a lot of people have logged in now. Before I start, please feel free to ask questions. You will see in the sidebar, there's this little speech bubble icon. There you are able to post questions you may have. The presentation itself will last approximately 30 minutes. And after the 30 minutes, Anna Fischer, the managing director, and I together will answer all your questions that you have posted during the webinar. I think now enough people were able to log in, and I will quickly start the presentation. I would like to start with giving you a short overview over the webinar. First, I will talk about the definition of cosmetics and explain a little bit more about the authority in China. Then I'll explain the categorization of cosmetics. Then I will dive into the 2 different registration systems in China, followed by some regulations and standards and the latest regulatory updates. I will also talk about the test duration and cost, and will end the presentation with some do's and don'ts, things that you should be aware of. China Food and Drug Administration was established in 1998. Back then it was still called SFDA. But then a lot of scandals involving food and drug safety in China made headlines with negative news. You will have probably heard about the tainted milk powder scandal and contaminated food causing numerous deaths. And after this corruption scandal emerged, the SFDA was reorganized. Nevertheless, numerous scandals continued. In 2008, the institution was reorganized again and put under the control of the Ministry of Health. And finally, in 2013, the SFDA was renamed and also reorganized into the CFDA. The CFDA is an administrative and supervisory organization. It drafts regulations and draws up standards. It's responsible also for management regulations, and it also supervises the implementation of its rules. And something that we will talk about a lot today is obviously the responsibility of the CFDA over the cosmetics registration. Recently, actually in March 2018, during the 13th National People's Congress, the China cabinet decided to reduce the number of ministerial level departments. So the CFDA was actually abolished and replaced with the SAMR, short for State Administration for Market Regulation. In this presentation, I will refer to the authority as CFDA. That is also because the change of the internal structure is still in process. China defines cosmetics as chemical products that are applied on external parts of the human body by spreading or spraying. They are there to cleanse the body, to eliminate unpleasant odors, or to protect the skin and improve beauty and appearance. This is probably quite similar to the rest of the world. However, what is quite specific, the China Food and Drug Administration differentiates between special cosmetics and non-special cosmetics. And I will explain to you what those two groups are. Non-special cosmetics are products such as hair care, skin care, fragrances, makeup, nail cosmetics. And then there's special cosmetics. They are hair growth restoration, breast enhancement, deodorants, products for spot removing. Here, spot removing refers to cosmetics that are used to reduce skin epidermal pigmentation, and skin whitening and brightening products fall into this category. Then there's sunscreens, then there's hair dyes and hair perming products, depilatories, and body slimming or shaping products. So you probably have already an idea of where your products fall into. Now I will dive into the registration process, actually. There's three different things. The initial registration with the CFDA, then it is only valid for a couple of years, so you need to renew after 4 years. And then there's such a thing as a change application. The change application you need when you conduct certain changes of your product, like you change the Chinese name of your product, for instance. All imported cosmetic products have to have registration when entering the Chinese market, and they have to do that through the CFDA located in Beijing. Domestic produced cosmetics can do so in their local FDAs in their respective province. So this now is the CFDA registration process, started by the collection of the registration files. What we do is we usually send a document checklist to our customers where that is quite specific to the products, because each and every product, depending on the claims of the product as well as the ingredients, will result in different types of documents that have to be provided to the authorities. Then there's the sample transport. A lot of people ask me how many test samples are required for China, because as you probably know, there's always sample testing required in China as part of the registration. And we determine the sample amount in close collaboration with the test laboratories and the authority, and then we revert to you and tell you how many you need to send and also how to send them, because obviously these are not registered products yet, and how you can import them into China. The sample testing is done under close communication with the laboratories, and as the testing is undergoing, we usually prepare the registration files, which are then submitted together with the test report to the CFDA for them to review the documents and the application. The technical review follows, which is only applicable for special cosmetics. So it does take a little bit longer. Then the CFDA sometimes provides a supplementary notice, meaning that they have some questions, and then you have to submit some additional documents and explanations. After the second review, the CFDA makes their decision and also issues their certificate. Then I mentioned it, there's also something called the change application. This is necessary if you change the Chinese product name, or the manufacturer changes, or the address of the manufacturer changes. Renewal is necessary. You have to apply for it at least 6 months in advance, but we advise our customers to start much earlier. We usually remind them 1 year in advance, and we also have to check whether there have been any standard updates, because if the regulations have changed, then it could be that more tests are required. So you don't want to wait for too long, because you want to avoid the risk of having to stop with your sales. Now, something that I haven't mentioned to you yet is that according to Chinese regulations, the CFDA filing or registration of cosmetics must be carried out by a legal entity based in China. And foreign manufacturers need a legal agent for all the bureaucratic procedures and the supervision of tests, basically for the application. And the legal agent is responsible for the registration but also bears legal responsibility over the correctness of the submitted documents. As a foreign manufacturer, you have three choices. The first one is you have your own company branch, your own office in China, and then your colleagues can do the registration and act as your CFDA legal agent. Number two would be you choose your Chinese distributor, or number three, an independent consulting company like us. If you do not have an office in China, you can choose your distributor. However, I always advise companies to be very careful when selecting distributor as their CFDA legal agent. It is crucial that you have a really good business relationship to your distributor, because we have come across a lot of cases where there have been difficulties. The critical point here is that if the distributor is the CFDA legal agent, they tend to not hand over the original certificate after the certificate has been issued. They do this in order to give themselves some form of exclusivity as the distributor. This, however, gives them quite disproportionate control. The manufacturer is quite dependent on the support of the distributor, and without his support, you cannot export products to China or change or renew the certificate, because the original documents are crucial for these processes. And if you do choose your distributor as your legal agent, then please ensure that your non-disclosure agreement can be actually enforced in China. In case the relationship doesn't work out so well and you wish to renew the certificate and the distributor doesn't cooperate, the last option for a lot of cosmetics brands is then to actually register all their products anew. So the third option would be to appoint a consulting company or a service provider as the CFDA legal agent, meaning a neutral partner is responsible for the CFDA registration. Your advantage here is obviously your independence, and you can also choose and change as many distributors as you wish at a time. After I've talked about the registration process as well as the importance of being careful when choosing your CFDA legal agent, I would like to now address a different registration system. I get asked a lot of questions regarding Shanghai Pudong New Trade Zone on my visits to trade fairs, and you're probably interested in this as well. Before I start talking about it, we will initiate a little poll, a little questionnaire now. You will see in your sidebar, and you will be able to vote whether you have already registered some of your products with Beijing CFDA or Shanghai FDA. So I will talk a little bit about the differences and also the disadvantages and advantages of the two different systems. In the future slides, I will refer to the new trade zone as Shanghai Pudong, but in fact, there are 10 more zones where a very similar system is already implemented. One of the most important differences is that you can only register non-special products with the Shanghai FDA. So if you have any sunscreen protection or skin whitening or any product claim that falls into the special cosmetics category, you're not able to register through the Shanghai FDA. Furthermore, the location of the legal agent has to be within Shanghai Pudong new area. And the Shanghai FDA has actually voiced issued with the first import of non-special cosmetics. And it turns out that some Shanghai FDA legal agents have filed the wrong business address online, causing the suspension of the certificate. So be careful here. Also, a big difference, and as I would say, a big disadvantage, is the responsibility of the Shanghai FDA legal agent is a little bit more extensive. So they're not only responsible for the regulatory affairs in association with the registration, but also they will be your importer as well as distributor. So this obviously compromises your independence and also a sense of safety, I'd say. Some more differences is, and this is the main advantage of the Shanghai FDA, is that for non-special cosmetics, the registration only takes 3 months. However, for the Beijing CFDA registration, it takes 6 to 7 months. And special cosmetics, 8 to 12 months. But then I really asked myself, is this really such a big advantage? And because these 3 months are not the real time span. If you look at the registration process of the two systems, they're actually very, very similar with one big difference. In Shanghai, the certificate is issued, and after that, the technical review takes place. And the Shanghai FDA is famous or known for being even stricter than the Beijing CFDA. So in many, many cases, the license will be suspended as soon as the Shanghai FDA sees difficulties or problems with the documents that you have provided. And then you have to immediately stop sales again and start anew, or even go to Beijing CFDA. The CFDA certificate is valid for 4 years, while the one in Shanghai is valid forever. If you want to make any changes to your product, you just cancel your registration and then apply for a new registration. And a big difference as well is that the import port is restricted to Shanghai Pudong new trade zone. So you're not able to import through any other ports in China if you apply through the Shanghai FDA. This is the process. As I mentioned before, after the certificate is issued, the technical verification takes place, where then a lot of problems occur. So now I'd be interested in your votes. Most of you have not registered any cosmetics in China yet. So it was good that I introduced the two systems to you to make up your mind as to which option is the right one for your company. And now I'm going to continue with the regulations and standards that are important for cosmetics registration in China. Here you can see the different regulations and standards. I will not talk about them now in detail, especially because I don't think there would be so much use for me to just read them off the slides. But during the replay of the presentation, feel free to come back to the slide and study the regulations and standards. And if there should be any questions, you can always send me an email. Now I will continue with the regulatory updates, the latest news regarding China registration in cosmetics. So in November last year, import tariffs of various cosmetics were halved, which is lovely. And then in December, the cross-border e-commerce, abbreviated with CBEC, were extended to 15 ports. So in case some of you do not know about cross-border e-commerce, there is a way of selling your products in China without having to register them. This is through these dedicated online platforms called CBEC. There, you are allowed to sell your cosmetics from B to C, from business to customer. The only thing I would like to stress is that this is only valid until the end of December of this year. It is possible that the CFDA will prolong this CBEC system. However, no one knows until they actually do it. In January this year, the Shanghai New Trade Zone was implemented. And then also in January, a couple of days later, some rules were introduced for the industry to evaluate cosmetic efficacy claims. So any claims that are written on the product packaging have to actually be able to be proven in a way. And now I will come to the most interesting and groundbreaking, in my eyes, news. And before I do so, I am going to ask you in another poll. So this poll and this news is about animal testing in China. A lot of people actually do not know about this. I get confronted with a lot of rumors about animal testing and whether it's going to be abolished, whether it stays. So in February this year, the NIFDC published a draft on alternatives of animal testing. The draft was open for public comment until the mid of February, so just for literally 10 days, and clearly indicates a major step towards the improvement of China's technical cosmetics regulations and the replacement of animal testing in the future. The two tests I'm talking about in here are a skin irritation test and a eye irritation test. And as I said, this is just a draft, so there will be another couple months until the final notice is released. However, this is such an exciting news, and I'm looking forward to changes that the Chinese authorities are making, because I think this will open the market to a lot of more companies. And now I am looking at the results of the poll, and actually 100% of you have said that animal testing conflicts with your company's image. This really is a very promising development. 35 new cosmetics GB standards were introduced, and they will enter into force in September. When I say GB, I'm talking about Guobiao standards. In other words, Chinese or national compulsory standards. Then in March, the CFDA simplified the application documents for change applications, which is good. And just in April, the CFDA published the report for 2017 about the registration of cosmetics. And you can see that 2,537 initial registrations were made by domestic as well as foreign cosmetic brands, and 12,638 initial registrations were done for imported non-special cosmetics. Now I will continue with the duration and cost of testing in China. So before I click onto the next slide, I just want to make sure that these numbers are estimations, as well as that these numbers are subject to regular change. So here you're able to see the test fees for non-special cosmetics and then all the different types of special cosmetics. But not only that, you will notice that in the last column, there's certain test fees for particular ingredients. So when Cisema calculates a quotation for potential customers, what we do is we create a full cost calculation, meaning everything is included, while other service providers might only give you their internal effort, or maybe only the test fees. When we make a full cost calculation, there is application fee, test sample import and transportation fees. There is all the translations and notarizations of documents and labels, etc., etc. And when we do our full cost calculation, in order to be able to predict the cost, we have to study each and every ingredient of your product, as well as the product claims that are written on the packaging. Now I will continue with some do's and don'ts. Many people at trade fairs come to me and they approach me and ask me, oh, you really don't want to disclose all the information for our products. We don't want to tell the authority all the ingredients. Is this a problem for you? Have you ever worried about disclosing all this delicate information? There will be another poll now, so make sure to vote. Because as a matter of fact, as part of the application, you have to disclose not only the detailed product formula, but also the production process. As I predicted, a lot of you worry about it, about disclosing the ingredients. Currently, it's 83% of you worry about it. So we often get confronted with concerns by customers or by their contract manufacturers. And Cisema has a long history of CFDA registrations, and we do not know of any case where it has been proven that the CFDA officials have disclosed confidential information to third parties. In response to these rumors, the CFDA actually introduced new and even stricter regulations in 2017, clearly prioritizing IPRs, intellectual property rights, really more and more protected in China. And they do this by introducing severe penalties for civil servants. So you could really say there's a witch hunt. So if officials would disclose any information, they would play with their professional career should they ever break the law. So that's their professional suicide, in other words. And I just noticed that I just skipped over point number 1. I apologize. I'm going to talk about number 1 now, the product formula. So there is no Chinese blacklist. Instead, in China, there is a so-called used cosmetics material list, and I like to refer to as this green list of all the ingredients that you are allowed to use in your cosmetics products. As of now, there's 8,783 ingredients in this green list, and I'm aware that this is significantly less than in the US or in the EU. So the likelihood that there will be ingredients in your products that are not on this list is high. But we have always been able to find a solution together with our customers. So don't worry about it. We study the ingredients very closely in very detail to make sure that there will be no problems. Let's get to the next do's and don'ts. Product quality and safety control requirements. So depending on the concrete product, there are certain quality and safety limits which you may not exceed. You can see one example. I'm just going to name one. There's lead. You're not allowed to exceed lead by 10 milligram per kilogram. There we go. And the table continues onto the next slide. So make sure that you comply with these rules. Let's talk about the packaging and claims. Obviously, you're not supposed to exaggerate or make wrong promises. The CFDA is actually quite particular about their formulations. But again, here we have always been able to find a solution, and maybe some minor tweaking of the wording is necessary. Products, when they get imported, they have to actually contain a Chinese label. This is especially important for the first import of registered cosmetics. There, the Chinese label must be affixed on the product in China and registered at customs. And for the subsequent imports of the same cosmetics, the Chinese label may be affixed either abroad or in China. And here in this table, you can see what type of information has to be displayed on these Chinese labels. Thank you so much for listening. And as you will have seen, Stefan Fischer has just dialed in, and together with him, I will now answer any questions that you want to ask. Just write them down in the comments. Thank you so much for attending today, and I wish you a good day and speak to you soon. If you have any more questions, please feel free to email me anytime.